You got to have skills, roles, and mobility. You have to be able to move, hire, grow people. So talent management and having the internal insights to your employee supply, if you will, of skills is foundational.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Talent Acquisition Leaders Podcast. If something we said today resonated with you, please subscribe, rate, and download our podcast and share the episode with your network. Ready to transform your recruiting practices with leading edge technology, just like our other clients at 3M, Comcast, Stryker, and Walgreens? Then reach out at sagemarkhr.com for a free consultation.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Talent Acquisition Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Dull, and today I have a conversation with John Heyliger. John is the VP of Global Talent Acquisition at Lockheed Martin. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm excited to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Looking forward to the conversation. Let's start out and talk a little bit about your background. Tell me, how did you get started in talent? What are some roles that you've held leading up to your current role?
I started my career as a technical recruiter at Aerotech. So it's fun to run into those folks, all good stories of how, we were trained as, green recruiters, no experience. I spent a couple of years there and went over to the client side about 2 years in, and then eventually just grew into leadership roles, side projects. I was a business partner for a short stint, it's a part of a telecom company that went through massive layoffs. So I learned what it was like to lay people off. The good experience you never want to do again kind of thing. But I've stayed in talent acquisition basically since then. I was on the recruitment outsourcing side for 4 years. It was actually a lot of fun because you get to get into multiple client company scenarios. And sometimes you're implementing technology. Sometimes they wanted you to redesign their process, filling the recs, all those kinds of things. And then I had my first global role for it's a mid-sized software company out of San Francisco, but we were growing in China, Malaysia, UK, Japan, and got to travel the world and, learn those cultures and all the employment laws that come with that. How do we grow and open locations there, those kinds of things. And then, the last 12 years have been at Lockheed, where I've run TA for one of our business units, workforce planning, data analytics. And then for a part, probably over the last 2 years or so, I was on the workforce transformation side, where I've kind of handed that back off and just focused on TA.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Impressive career. And so for the viewers who don't know who Lockheed Martin is, talk a little bit about Lockheed Martin as a business, to kind of scope out your role a little bit, size of the organization, what the business does, maybe how many hires, how big's your team, those kinds of things.
We're the largest defense company in the U.S., but we do a lot of building and international business as well. We have over 120,000 employees. We're in 43 countries. Our hiring volume is anywhere from 10 to 15,000 a year. A good portion of that is early career, so we're pretty focused on campus recruiting, high school, community college, to try to build up that talent at that point. And so, we're largely a decentralized function today across HR, not just in TA, but that's changing, which I imagine we'll hit on later. But we have, historically worked as separate businesses over the last several years. So there's been a lot of change and try to bring this under one enterprise and how we do everything from HR, buy parts, manage suppliers, do contracts, those kinds of things.
Great. So let's talk about the last couple of years. So if you look backwards, what are a couple initiatives that you and the team have worked on that you're particularly proud of or that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so we're, right now we're rolling out our new applicant tracking system this year, as well as new HCM. So that's number one. So doing that concurrently. A lot of focus on AI, how we organize our function based on those processes, harmonizing those, the technology that supports it, and then how we model the function. And that's not just TA, that's all of HR, and that's all the other functions from engineering, manufacturing, finance, all of those. So it's really a wholesale transformation of how we run the business, shifting to model-based design, product centers, all these things to try to be more efficient, drive down cost, work faster, build products faster, and then emerging into sort of the new space of quantum and how that's going to shift our business. But obviously AI is a big part of that as we try to drive automation efficiency, candidate experience being the focus there. So our new ATS will have a core platform and then an AI skill matching capability to it.
Okay, that's great. Let's talk a little bit maybe about um, performance and results from how you measure success in talent acquisition. So first, maybe what's important to the executive group and the leaders at your organization, and then into like how do you measure success within TA itself?
Yeah. I mean, it's the traditional stuff. So, time to fill, and we battled that but with the business because in some cases they give us need dates that are unachievable. So it's time to fill, but reasonable speed, but also how do we make sure we're getting those demand signals early so we can be more proactive on when we deliver that talent. There's the candidate quality metric, which we've done where we take the feedback from the manager and the candidate at a certain point to derive the net promoter score of satisfaction. Both sides have a certain promoter score that has a quality index tied to it, if you will. And so we do like a 3-month and 6-month survey. We also look at attrition, but not so much as we do the quality side. We look at a lot of the candidate funnel metrics. We being efficient? Are we looking at all the applicants? Are we assessing properly? But I'll tell you, the volume of candidates we get nowadays, it's hard to get to everyone. So we leave a lot of applicants on the table. And so we're looking at ways where, AI interviewer, top of funnel sort of assessment capabilities to try to make sure that they're getting better visibility, but that's more future. We've also looked at acceptor rates. That's a big piece of, are we getting our top talent at a higher rate, especially for critical skills? And then we've been able to tie recruiting outcomes to business results. So a lot of our business is almost like a consulting company. So we bill labor back to the customer depending on the program. So the faster you hire them, the more you can recognize revenue. So we're able to tie for every day faster we get them on board, the more we can accelerate that revenue. So there was a big case we used to add more recruiters because we were falling behind and rec loads were getting too much. So we can actually add value to the business by driving speed and giving them, bringing out recruiters, giving them more rec loads and having fill positions faster. Those are some examples.
Yeah, that's an exciting type of, I guess, accounting practices where you can actually show that business value and ROI for an investment to recognize that revenue faster. That makes a lot of sense and ties you much closer to business. That's great. Let's look forward a little bit. You touched on it a little bit. You've got some tech initiatives going on right now, but if you look forward over the next, say, 12 months, what are some of the priorities for you and your team?
They're big ones, but it kind of boil it down to some key things. It feels like a lot. So it's the holistic transformation of both modernizing our systems and how we're organized as a function. AI impact and readiness, upskilling, awareness, adoption, whether it's individual recruiter productivity and how they use AI to, synthesize interview feedback or candidate outreach or interview guides, those kinds of, as we today call them on a basic for now productivity capabilities. And then how they're going to adopt the new way of whether AI is helping with skill matching, shifting to candidate being at the center, focusing on, candidate engagement, candidate experience. I would also say shifting to skills readiness of how we assess talent, those skills versus credentials, degrees, experience. So we're testing that out in early career of how not just how we write our recs, but how we're screening and selecting those candidates. So with the intent that, historically, like, well, we need a computer science student. Or if you need someone to program, not necessarily have that degree, you have civil engineering students, you have electrical, you have even community college students who can program. We'd broaden the talent pool if we were to shift to that model. Probably not the greatest example now because software is becoming more AI driven and you need less coders, but just to but at least be able to illustrate of how we're kind of shifting to skill based. Candidate fraud's a big one. Being able to detect as well as select and assess candidates. I'm sure many companies, at least that I know, have had cases where, the candidate interview is not who they say they are. And not to mention, they're using AI to write resumes. And so, how do you truly know that they have those capabilities when they're just trying to use it to match to the rec? Candidate experience is the top priority for us. So, building our processes that are candidate centric, applicant tracking system was a big piece. We talk about how we build out the workflows. There is happy path is kind of jokingly what we say, happy to the candidate. So, are we doing everything to minimize the burden of applying, the experience they have knowing when and who, if they're talking to AI versus a human, those kinds of things. And then I would say, the shift to, and I say this because this has been going on for years, but we really need talent advisors. So we've been working 2 phases of an upskilling series with talent advisor in mind, data literacy, talent market literacy, AI capabilities. So it's the full gamut. So we've done a first series there, and now we're bringing in specific Lockheed Martin use cases that they can apply those learnings. So those are probably the big ones.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot there. I wanted to double click on one thing that you mentioned specifically. Interested in, as you start going into the skill based assessment of candidates and things. Obviously, that is a big change for any organization, especially an organization of your size. So, what are some of the challenges that you found that in moving in that direction? There's a lot of people that are starting to down that path or are midway down that path, but it's not easy. And so we're interested in hearing from you on like maybe some of the challenges that you ran into of making that change and how you are working to overcome them.
This is the fun part about what I do is that I don't get to just play in talent acquisition. I get to play across the HR function. So we're big believers in each, at least in our HR, of being more systemic and integrated. So when we talk skills, you got to have skills, roles, and mobility. You have to be able to move, hire, grow people with the basis of skills intelligence. So what skills do they have? What gaps exist? So talent management and having the internal insights to your employee supply, if you will, of skills is foundational. And so we've talked to a lot of our peers that are struggling with this or whatever tool they're using. I don't know if anybody's tracked that code. We've had a home built skill inventory that we're using that's employee self-validated, manager and peer endorsed. It's kind of like LinkedIn, but we don't have control over the skills that are being included, and there's skills that are random that have no like business context. So the taxonomy is important. The skills that can be inferred if you say, something like recruiting. What are all the variations of skills that might be better associated externally versus what we might call it internally? So there's that inferred sort of intelligence connecting to the external market. So when you have a sense of what your internal supply looks like when you bring in new people, you're synthesizing the skill taxonomy, if you will. And then how do you constantly are you updating your skills of your workforce real time? You can use it based on like voice notes or information pulled from a presentation that someone did that might suggest they're an expert in whatever topic they're presenting. So this real time updating versus I got to go in manually as an employee and update it myself. So those are all like foundational things, regardless of what COE you're in HR. But we'll be testing it out with our new applicant tracking system of when we create a rec, it'll take the skills in that rec and it'll use industry agnostic, more external taxonomy that would be able to match candidates more intelligently, knowing that out of the box, it's probably going to have to learn Lockheed Martin, but I think the LLM that we're getting has, billions of records to suggest it's going to have some value on the front end. But, with that, I would imagine as a recruiter or hiring manager, like, are these really the skills they have? Like, can I really trust this yet? So we're planning for skepticism that will be in as a part of adopting that new technology, and whether like, are they really a 5 stars out of 5 or that, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
the flip side of that is they put too much trust in the matching and make assumptions that, they are, say top candidate without doing the selection. So anyway, it is sort of the architecture of the skills, intelligence, capability, and the taxonomy that we have to solve that before we can do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Knowing that we can do some practicing, right, with a career in how we write our.
Yeah, really critical to lay that foundation and for change, and then iterative as you go through the process. So thanks for that level of detail and transparency. I appreciate that. It's the struggle is real, but a lot of people are going through it, and I think there's value out the back end.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
Great. Last question I would have for you is, what's some advice that you would have for others in the field? The audience here is made up mostly of people that are either in TA or interested in TA. So what's a piece of advice that you would give others in the field?
I mean, so if you're thinking of getting into the field or new into the field, I think find experts that you can mentor, peer relationships, learn from what you would consider the best. I mean, that's probably what I would recommend. But as folks want to get into leadership and sort of what pivots or things you can think about as the market shifts, because now I think in January we had record layoffs, so the highest rate of layoffs since 2009. And so now we're being saturated with candidates applying. I would imagine many of us are facing that. Not to mention AI and how do I adopt it and still be more relevant and effective. The fear that might come with whether my job gets replaced. I would say on the AI side, don't be afraid, jump in, because it's the ones that are afraid that kind of resist that may struggle having relevancy. So learn all you can, experiment, share with others, create communities within your own company of your fellow recruiters using it. We created a community of practice that's been really valuable. Learn from folks externally. And then as you get into leadership, and I'd say even as recruiters or if you're a sourcer, know the business you're in, know why you're hiring the talent, know how then to also understand the external market, which, so if you specialize in, say, engineering and engineering disciplines, what are these folks doing on a day-to-day basis? Talk to the folks doing the work, use that to create success profiles that, can really narrow down the critical skills. What are the challenges with the role? What are the annual outcomes of this role? How do they contribute to the business? And then you can all use that to market pitch and figure out how you address and sell the candidate. So business knowledge. And then I think we're really big on what we call operational excellence. How does a recruiter know if you're having a good day? And if you are a recruiter, ask your leader to help you with that. Is speed important? Is quality important? Is candidate experience important? Sometimes it's all of it. And we know how hard that is to achieve. And so really, ask leaders, what is it? What does success look like? What matters? And how do I know if I had a good day or week? I think those are some of the big things. I think if you're in a senior leadership role, if you're running a talent acquisition function and you're struggling with workforce planning or you're making progress there, the advice I would give is make sure that the business owns the demand, not HR. They're the ones that they know what talent they're going to need, and that HR owns the supply side. So if you can get to that level of agreement and contract and a partnership with the business where you're sharing that ownership, and then you have common systems and processes to be able to, regularly look at demand, even within a year. It's amazing how many companies just aren't there yet. And it's a massively strategic advantage, not just for TA, but for the business, because we all know, and I'm sure your audience knows, we can be pretty reactive. Our demand signals are wreck. You don't know what's coming. Next thing you know, you have this new rec, for skills you never heard of, or it's on top of the dozens of other recs you have. And so the more senior TA leaders can really drive workforce planning practice and ownership, I think that just sets the function up really well. And then I'm a big follower of Josh Burson and others that are really talking about how, in some cases, we as TA professionals have the ability to become our own citizen developers of creating our own sourcing tools. And so I think find the folks that are adopters and really want to stretch their capabilities in AI, because there are tools that can do a lot. And it may not mean you go buy a product off the shelf. Maybe it's something you you can build yourself. So I think that's probably more on the advanced side, as versus the traditional tried and true. How do we recruit? The other thing too is the best recruiters, the best leaders, are the ones that are like, what are the latest marketing tactics? You know, we've all gone through the evolution of search engine optimization and mobile recruiting and texting. And now candidates are going on Gen AI and doing their search on ChatGPT or Copilot.
Yeah.
So how do you set your business up to that when those candidates are doing that, your company's showing up? That's new to me, and that's might be new to others. So these are all the things that good teams, good leaders, good recruiters, and sourcers need to keep up with. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that level of feedback and guidance at each of the levels of the potential listener. So I appreciate that. John, great job today. Always fun to have a conversation with you, and really appreciate you joining me today on the podcast.
Appreciate you having me, Ryan.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Talent Acquisition Leaders Podcast. If something we said today resonated with you, please subscribe, rate, and download our podcast and share the episode with your network. Ready to transform your recruiting practices with leading-edge technology just like our other clients at 3M, Comcast, Stryker, and Walgreens? Then reach out at sagemarkhr.com for a free consultation.